I think it's not something that's happened over the past few days. We've been in conversation with both Gary and Graham for a period of time. The announcement has come because obviously we needed to make an announcement before the Six Nations, and ultimately the decision about Gary going before the Six Nations was Gary's decision. So that's the reason for the timing. We've worked with the players a lot over the last 12, 18 months on making sure that they just do their jobs, that they just need to focus on what's in front of them and not worry too much about everything else that's happening around them. Done a lot of what if scenarios, and including what if Gary wasn't there or what if Graham wasn't there, and all of those things leading into the World Cup. And actually the players are fantastic at just going, okay, well that's the situation, we'll get on with it and we'll deal with it. So I'm not worried in that respect in terms of how the players are. I think they obviously care for Gary a lot. He's put a huge amount into a lot of their playing careers, and so personally they want to say their thanks as well, which they've been doing to him, but respect his decision and just want to thank him for what he's put in. My role was head of performance, so I was effectively Gary's line manager before that. But my role was very sort of strategic. I worked a lot with the management team, looking at the direction of the squad, the operational pieces that we put in place for how much training we were going to be doing, where we were training, who was going to be delivering, what our sort of objectives were. So that was my role. So I had a really good understanding of actually what we've been doing. The piece that I haven't done sort of very much of over the last few years is work directly with the players. So the main difference in terms of what I'll be doing now is actually spending some face-to-face time with the players and working with them, which is the bit I'm really excited about over the next few weeks. We'll select for the first game on Tuesday, or that announcement will come out on Tuesday. We've got a training camp this weekend, so everybody's got their hat in the ring that's fit to be selected this weekend. But I think we've got some exciting players who are potentially going to be putting their hands up. We've got players like Abby Brown, who played for England Sevens and England Under-20s last year, who I think will make the step up during the Six Nations, if it's not the first game, at some point during the Six Nations. And we've got other players like Sydney Gregson, who played England Under-20s last year, Abby Scott in the second row, who has had a period of time out through injury, is now coming back into the fold, previous Under-20s. So we've got some really exciting young talented players that are coming into contention. We may bring some players back in, but I think really confident about the group of players that we've got in training this weekend. A lot of those players were actually part of that World Cup winning squad, so we've got a lot of experience there. So some of the players that are out in Atlanta weren't part of that squad and not necessarily that experienced 15s, or out in Rio. They're not in Atlanta yet, are they? Out in Rio. They're not necessarily that experienced at 15. So, really confident that we may bring some back in, but it will be looking at each game, looking how well the squad's playing. So, we may, keep pretty much the same squad as we go through if they're playing really well, because ultimately this Six Nations for us is about developing some of those younger players and really setting our stall out for the start of this sort of long-term World Cup campaign. We always work through things in that respect. We didn't have a strong squad when we went into the Six Nations in 2013. And actually part of that was around developing some of the players. So, Kerry Large, Amber Reid, who we expect to be at the forefront of our Six Nations campaign this time round, who played important roles in the World Cup, really were blooded during that Six Nations campaign. So it's really important that we give players international opportunity, because that's what they need. and it's always difficult to know exactly when to do it. And I think there's a lot of coaches around the world that have got it really right, and some that it's not quite the right time. But I'm really confident with the group that we've got. We say we're concentrating on development. It doesn't sort of water down our ambition to get the Six Nations title back. We've got a really good group of players, and we're really confident in how they can perform. We ultimately want to get that Six Nations title back again. I think the really sort of important fact is that Six Nations is actually getting more competitive. Other sides are getting better, so it's harder to win. It's not a shoe-in. It's not something we could just turn up and expect to win games. Every game is difficult. Every game is competitive, and that's brilliant for the tournament. I'd love to win every game and not have to worry about it too much, but actually it's far better for the game, and it's actually far better for the players that you don't know the result when you go out on the pitch, because you've got to step up and play, and you've got to step up and play for 80 minutes. I think they will stay aligned. That's how we want to work. Ultimately, we want to give the best players in the world as many opportunities to be on the world stage as possible, and to separate them out doesn't necessarily do that. Ultimately, we'll see some players who are 7 specialists, and we'll see some players who are 15 specialists. Front 5 are not going to be playing 7, so there will be some split, but ultimately we want to keep them as aligned and integrated as possible, because ultimately rugby's rugby.